Hello everybody. Today we're going to be installing sway bar links front and rear on a 2009 Volvo S60. I have that familiar clunking sound when you go over bumps that you typically get from a sway bar link when they go bad, and we're going to replace it and see which one is the culprit that might be bad. The ones that I've got here, it's a part manufacturer I have not tried before, Detroit axle, made right here in the US. The front ones are the typical sealed, no maintenance ones that you find all over the place. The rear are the ones with the grease fittings that are kind of cool. I don't know what's on there. The rear ones may have had grease fittings or something. I can't remember, so we'll take a look when we pull those off and see what we've got. First things that we want to do is get the car ready. I've got the car in the garage on a level surface. I've got the emergency jack on. I'll be putting wheel chocks under the rear wheels because I'm going to do the front first. And when I jack this up, I want to jack up both front tires at the same time. I want both front tires off the ground. You can't do just one side of this at a time, or lift up one side at a time. These bars, what these do is there is a sway bar that goes from one side of the car to the other. It's kind of like this, except with another thing sticking out over on this end, and it sits like this in the car. This bar is attached to the frame here so that it can pivot or roll like this. And it's attached to your suspension over on the other side with this right here. As the car goes around a corner, the car sways and has a tendency to push this side down. The suspension pushes this piece down. Well, as it does that, the other bar, the other side of the bar also wants to go down, but because you're swaying this way, this side's trying to go up, so they counter each other. When this pushes down, this doesn't want to go down because it's trying to go up, so it tries to push this side down, which brings this side up and makes the whole car more level. You know, it's a little dance that it does there. The bigger the roll bar, or sway bar, the more pronounced the effect is going to be in keeping this car flat. So if you jack up just one side of the car, it's going to put a twist on this bar, which puts a huge load. This is spring steel, and if you take this bolt out and try to pop it loose, it's going to spring back down or up or whatever way it has to go with such incredible speed and force. It can remove body parts quite easily. You don't want to do that. So if you're doing sway bar links, you always want to make sure both front tires or both back tires are off the ground at the same time. That way that sway bar link is just sitting there flapping. There's no torque or stress on it at all. Biggest thing to remember right there is the safety part. So let me get this thing jacked up on both sides, and then I'll get one tire removed, and I'll show you where the anti-roll bar is and the link that goes with it. So be right back. Alrighty, I got the car up in the air and I got the tire off, and here's what we have. There is this link right here that we're going to be replacing with this. See, first thing I want to do is make sure it's the right length, and it is. Matches up top and bottom. And this is that bar that goes from one side to the other. So this is attached to the frame at a couple of points there so that this whole assembly can rotate up and down. If this suspension is raised up in the air, it's going to have this bar trying to push up right here. So if it's going to try to make the other side do the same. That's why when you jack your car up on one side, this side also wants to go up. So that's a little bit about what's going on there. So this is, I believe that's an 18 millimeter up there, and on the back side of that, that's a 14 millimeter. And you've got Torx um, things in the center there. I think this is a T40. Yeah, that's a T40. And the one on the bottom probably is a T35. What does that say right there? If we can make it focus. T30. So that's a T30 on the bottom. And that's T40 on the top there. So you can hold it like that if you need to, and then use a wrench to take it off. Now I'm going to use the air gun, which I happen to have right here with the 18mm on it, and I'm going to try to back it off to break it loose. I think that's... No, I got a 19mm on here. Yeah, see, I broke it loose right there just doing that. And then I can use my wrench to take it the rest of the way off. And you see, there's a little bit of tension on it even. It tries to pop that bar up a little bit. So when you put these in, you're going to have to angle that back down. But let me get that the rest of the way out there. I'm going to take that out and take that loose. And let me just put you here on the tripod so you can see a little bit about what I'm doing. And I'll show you a little bit. Let's see if I can get this the rest of the way off with the air gun. Yes, I can. I got lucky on that one. Seeing that comes off. And that's not horrible, but I shouldn't be able to move that. So this has got some play in it right here that I shouldn't be able to move very easily. So let me take that other end off down there. Where'd it go? Right there. I'm going to get my 14mm. See if I can find it real quick. Make sure it does fit on the back of that. And this one is bigger. The one that goes back on is 14. Oh, might help if I try this end instead of this end. No, that must be a 15 after all. Feels a little bit loose to be a 15, but we're going to give it a shot and see what happens. See if we can get it off. And I think I got it going the wrong way. Alright, I got a small air compressor, so I'll hit head to cycle through. So I got it loose there, but I'm going to have to use it the old-fashioned way to get it the rest of the way off. So let me get that Torx bit right here, put that on. Yep, and get my wrench and go ahead and remove it that way. Alright, so I have the old one off here. And these, see how easy I can move those? This is, I mean, even side to side I can move it pretty easily. All around, both ends. There's no clunking sound. This one's got a little bit more tightness to it than this one does. And no actual clunking sound, so this one isn't horrible at all. These new ones are pretty tight. It takes a bit to move them. So these are supposed to be pretty tight. I mean, I can wiggle this one, but it's really tight. That's how they're supposed to be, good tight fittings, so that there's no clunking action. So this one was beginning to wear, and it does need to be replaced. Confirming that it is indeed the same length. Looks great. So I'm going to put it back on. Now put these back on in the right direction. The big bolt end went up top. The small bolt end went down on the bottom. So all I've got to do is set it back up there and put it back in place the same way. I take my wrench, show you how this works here. I've got, this one uses the T40. Where's my big wrench? Is this the one that's, nope, this isn't the one that goes on there. But I've got my wrench and I just tighten this right down on there. And or I can hold the wrench here and then use my ratchet to tighten it. To tighten it, I actually go in the reverse direction because I'm twisting this. But you can spin this inner thing here. So we're gonna put this back on, and we'll show you what it looks like. All right, here is a bad view because I'm around back. I'm gonna put that there. All right, so bottom one is on good. Now we just got to get the top one on. So let me angle you up that way. And all I'm doing, oh, make sure that this goes this side of the loop there for your brake speed sensor, or whatever that is, wheel position sensor, whatever it is. So all we're doing, oh, wrong way. If I'm turning the inside, I act like I'm loosening it. This is a difficult position to keep, so I can let you guys see what's going on. So I'm just going to finish tightening that down. That's all I've got to do, and then we'll go to over to the other side and see what it looks like. Tell you what, sometimes you just got to hate working on cars, and sometimes you just got to deal with it. This one is a different brand that was on here, and everything's different. This nut was a 17 millimeter. This was still a T30. This was a 19 millimeter, the top end. Actually, yeah, the top end was a 19 millimeter, but it was a T40. This one was a 17 millimeter, the bottom one, and it was a hex. And actually, as I look at this, I think this is a hex too. I don't know if you can see it there. I don't know if it's going to focus or not. A little bit. But the T40 hex got it off. This was pretty loose. And if you listen, I think that's what I was hearing. As I go over the bump, that'll make quite a sound there. So I'm going to put the new ones back in, and then we'll get to the backs. We'll pop the front end back down and get to the backs. Okay, here is what we're faced with on the back tire. Got the back tire off, obviously, and it's jacked up. And this is the sway bar link on this end. Ties to this part of the upper arm. And the sway bar link here that routes back through over to the other side of the car. And I believe if you look up under there, from what I hear, that's a fairly easy upgrade if you want to get a thicker one of those to keep the car planted better in the back. I don't need to. I don't use it as performance car or anything. This is a 18 millimeter with the same T40 centerpiece here, but the new ones are a bit different. Let me show you what the new ones look like. This is it in the package. This is it out of the package. These are 17 millimeter. But instead of having the centerpiece there, this uses a backer nut that's an 18 millimeter so you can get an 18 millimeter on there and spin this down. The only thing I don't like about this is you've got to have a thin 18 millimeter, because this is a little bit thicker than my nut is. You see it there? So, you know, you got to be aware of that. So I'm not as crazy about that, because it's going to make tightening this down just a bit difficult. I've got to figure out how to get this stabilized and find a thinner one of these. I'll look around, see what I've got. But I do have my grease fittings that when I take off and look, there does not appear to be any grease in there currently. So I think what I'm going to have to do is put some grease in here. And it has the rubber boot here that keeps the grease inside, all protected, and keeps dust out of there, so that you can squirt new grease into here and it'll squirt out around this. So I kind of like that concept. I'm going to make sure that these are in tightly, properly into here, because that was, I mean, both of these are not even screwed in all the way. So Detroit Axle, shame on you. You should have put these in a little bit better. So I'm going to put those in and put some grease in here so I know that they're properly greased. And then we'll see how we can get these mounted. Alrighty, as is pretty common with me at least, I broke my T40 bit. The end came right off. This is the one that has that little hole in the end. I think it's called a safety bit or something like that. So I went out and got one that did not have that hole in there. It's the only one of the T40s that I had, so go figure. Now I've got one, and I do have a backup. I got another one that has the hole in it, so I can put it back in my toolkit. And then I've got this that I can hang up or keep together as well. So I've got a backup. So let's crack on and see if we can get this other one off. I've got the top off. I've just got to get the bottom off on this one. See, this is where we're at. This top one is loose here. I just got to get that bottom one off. And it was being a well, I won't name the name for it. We're just going to let you know it was being difficult. So that was a T40 that broke, wasn't it? Yeah, it's a T40, so I might have messed up the end there. Let me see what we can do. Well, guys, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to have to admit defeat temporarily. Sometimes that happens to all of us. I got the new T40. I broke another one, and the other one is bending so bad it's in danger of breaking. So I'll put everything back together while I still had something to put it together with. I'm going to have to heat that bottom nut up. It's corroded on there so bad I can't get it off with impact or anything. So what I'm going to have to do, my torch, I've just got one of those little propane torches with a screw-on heads that you put on top of the bottle. The head's several years old, and apparently it's clogged up, and I can't get it unclogged. So I'm going to have to get a replacement one of those. But these back links seem to be in good shape on this car, so I'm going to save these links for a future date, and we'll go with from there. And in the meantime, I'm going to go out and get me another head for my propane torch. And I don't have anything for map gas, so I think I'm going to get that too. But let me show you what you would do if this worked. Just like we started doing, all you've got to do is remove this one that has that T40 insert, this one that has that T40 insert, and this one comes loose really easily. This one's the one that's being a bear, and it's doing it on both sides. And then you just put this back in its place. Looks like the grease fittings will clear everything back here. They're not in danger of hitting the spring or anything, it looks like. So it's really just a matter of putting this back in place where this one comes out. The only thing I could foresee as an issue, like I said, is the width of this nut right here. Not real sure. If I've got an impact, I could probably draw this on there tight enough so it really didn't matter. But that's the only thing I could foresee as a potential issue. And you can get thin sockets. It's just got to hold it enough. I mean, you might even be able to get some needle nose pliers or something back there. It's just got to hold this enough to let this cinch down tightly. And once this starts turning on tightly, it'll turn on pretty easily. Quit focusing on things that I don't want you to. So that's all there is to it, is just getting this one off the same as we did on the front and putting the replacement on. And in this case, this nut won't come off for me, and I don't have a heat source to be able to remove it. So like I said, we're going to do that at a later date. And for right now, we're just going to put the tire back on this side. I got the other one on. We'll call her good. Alrighty, so here we are at the end of the day. As you can see, I've already cleaned up and changed clothes and all that. I had to go get a few other errands done after working on the car, and thankfully, as I suspected while I was looking at those rear sway bar links, they were in pretty good shape. There was no slop or anything like that. They weren't super tight, but they weren't loose either. They appeared to be in pretty decent shape, so I didn't think I needed to replace them. I just wanted to replace them all at once because it's easier just to keep track of when you need to do a set of these things. If you get a set, is so cheap. I think it was like $40 for a set of these things from Detroit Axle, and they seem to be pretty good quality, so they should last a few years hopefully. You know, for $40 they're easy to swap out, and I like the design on these better than I like the old ones that were on here. But thankfully, when I took the car out and drove it and tried to reproduce the sounds it was making, as I suspected, there was no more sounds. They were all coming from that one where when I wobbled it, you could hear it clicking, and that's what was causing it. It wasn't bad enough so that it would have caused any issues, but it annoyed me. I didn't want to hear it clunk like that every time I went over a bump. That means I had to keep the radio running at a high volume all the time. So anyway, we're done. I just wanted to share that with you and let you know it all ended up okay. And I will get a new thingy for my propane tank so that when I do get ready to swap these things out, I can heat that bolt up and remove them, hopefully, and be all right. If not, I'll take it into a shop and just have them take a damn torch and cut it off. But until then, I call it a successful weekend nonetheless, and hope you guys were able to learn a little bit out of this at least. This isn't as much of a how-to do it a little bit as it is a here's my journey, and you know, let's see what yours is. Tell me how it goes if you're trying to do these things and what your experience is. So talk to you guys later.